Hello everyone, today we'll find out how many gadgets you need to use in order to complete Batman Arkham City. In the game you have to use gadgets countless times in order to move forward, so I will find out what is the least number of gadgets you have to use in order to beat it. I have already done Arkham Asylum on my channel and now we're continuing the series with Arkham City. Before we begin with the challenge, let's establish the rules, and they are that I only count the gadget uses that Batman does, meaning that the cape, for example, is not considered a gadget, so I can use his cape as much as I want. However, things like detective mode and the evidence scanner are counted as gadget uses in my opinion, so I will be counting them. Other than that, batarangs, bat clothes, anything like that counts as a gadget, and I'll be counting that as well. As for Catwoman, I wouldn't count using the whip as a gadget because she uses it for everything. She can use it as Batman's cape, as a batarang, as a way to climb, so it's way too complicated to count it as anything in my opinion. And speaking of complicated, I am not counting any gadget uses during traveling. So for example, if I have to go from the steel mill to the GCPD, I'm not counting the gadget uses because I'll just be grappling in order to get there quicker. Because I did try to travel without using any gadgets and it took forever, and so because of that I decided to not count gadget uses during traveling. And with the rules out of the way, we can begin with the challenge. Our story begins with Catwoman, and it doesn't matter if you count the whip here or not because she doesn't need it, she just needs to beat up a few enemies. After that you play with Bruce Wayne for a while, you have a nice chit chat with Doctor Strange, and you're sent into Arkham City, and there you have to beat up a few thugs. But considering that Bruce has no gadgets, you don't have to use anything in order to move forward. And honestly, I would have liked to play as Bruce Wayne for the rest of the game. It would have made the challenge so much simpler, but unfortunately you cannot do that. You do some sick parkour and after that you finally get the Batsuit. When you're done suiting up, Batman pulls out the cryptographic sequencer. However, I do not count this as a gadget use because it's automatic, you have no control over it, so I count this as a cutscene usage of a gadget, and cutscenes do not count because I have no control over them and I cannot stop Batman from doing something I wouldn't do. Anyway, you have to go to the courthouse and you can use the rooftops in order to get into the second floor, after which you can use a ladder in order to get the guy with the sniper, and then you can beat up the rest of the two-faced thugs without any issues. As if saving her once wasn't enough, after that you have to save Catwoman again during the cutscene because otherwise the Joker would shoot her. And this unfortunately leads us to the first unskippable gadget use, and that's the evidence scanner. Well, it didn't take us long to get through the first gadget use, and it wouldn't be too long after we have to use even more gadgets, because after this you have to go to the church, and in there, after you beat up Harley Quinn, you're faced with some terrible adversity. The Predator section tutorial. So, let's unpack what you have to do during this small section. You have to use a smoke pellet, then you have to grapple up, then you have to use your detective mode because Batman apparently can't count to 4 and doesn't know that he can use gargoyles for some reason. And that's not all, for some stupid reason, which I swear is just in order to mess with me. You cannot just glide off the first gargoyle, you have to actually use your grapple to go to the second one. So you have to use your grapple a second time during this stupid section. After that you can easily take care of the thugs. You then need to go to the top of the church, and if you're careful enough you can do that with only one grapple use. You just have to find the correct place you have to grapple to, and it's very easy to complete that with only one grapple use, as after that you can use a ladder. When you reach the top you have to use the evidence scanner again in order to scan the sniper, and then you're off to the steel mill. When you reach the steel mill, you're required to use the grapple in order to enter through the chimney. You run around the lava a bit, and then you have to use the bat claw in order to lower the temperature so you can proceed forward. You drop down and continue moving forward, and while the game wants you to use detective mode, If you're smart enough like me, you'll notice that the floor here is a bit different, so you can use your explosive gel and destroy that part of the floor. And this leads you to a moment where Batman is just ridiculously lazy. There is a button at the top right of this wall, and if he wasn't so lazy he would have been able to touch it and use it. But no, you have to use a Batarang, otherwise Batman's laziness wouldn't be able to pass through. You don't move that much and you're stopped by yet another pipe full of steam, and you have to use 3 whole Batarangs in order to deactivate them all. You then beat up a few thugs and Harley drops the most relatable line in the whole game.
The hell are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead!
I couldn't agree more with that statement, so I decided to leave Harley alone and go around the steel mill for a bit, where I had to use a grapple one more time. This leads you to your first real predator encounter, where the enemies are sitting in pretty easy positions to take out, so you don't have to worry that much about them. Afterwards you save the doctor and you acquire the electric charge, which you're immediately forced to use not once but twice, and it sure wasn't nice. We now have to return to the room where Harley was, and in order to do so we have to grapple one time. After that we beat up a few thugs and go back to the main area, where in order to use the crane and destroy the door you have to use the electric charge at least 3 times, twice to swing it and hit the door and once to pull it out. When the crane is taken care of you have to grapple up once, however then you're attacked by the Joker's crew and so you have to fight them off, and only when you defeat them you can grapple up one more time in order to enter the room where the Joker is. There you find the Joker dead, commit some domestic abuse against Harley and fall for the old fake Joker gag. Now it's Harley's turn to deliver some justice upon you, and she quite literally batters you pretty hard. So much so that you get transferred into Catwoman's body for a while. As always, the Catwoman part is pretty straightforward, you just run around and beat up people. After that you get captured and have a chat with the person who caught you. You then return as Batman and have a lovely chat with the Joker, who is such a cool guy he even stops Harley from unmasking you. He reveals that he has poisoned you, and so you have to find Mr. Freeze in order to work on a cure. To find Freeze you have to go to the GCP building, and in order to get there you have to use the electric charge again. However, you quickly find out that Freeze isn't there, and so you have to find him. But before that, Batman uses his cryptographic sequencer in a cutscene, so that doesn't count. Before I could go out of the GCPD, however, I was locked inside by the Penguin and had to use the cryptographic sequencer in order to get out. After which you have to use the electric charge again, but after this betrayal I knew I had to go after the Penguin as well. You arrive at the museum and beat up the guards, and after that you have to use the cryptographic sequencer in order to unlock the museum. When you enter the museum you have to use the cryptographic sequencer again. Unfortunately, you realize that the Penguin is jamming your signal. That being said, I will still count it as a gadget use because there was a few solid seconds where Batman was trying to use it, and so you have to destroy the disruptors. In order to reach the first one you have to use a grapple once. For the second one, again, only one grapple is required for you to climb up to the place where you need to go, and the third one is a bit more complicated than the first two, because you have to go underground in order to reach it. In order to do that you have to grapple up this train. After that you have to use your electric charge in order to open a door, and then you have to go through a predator section where you'll be able to finally destroy the disruptor. And you know what that means, now you have to go all the way back from the way you came, so you have to use the electric charge again once, then grapple on the train, and when you get out of the subway you have to grapple once more in order to get back to the museum, where you have to use the cryptographic sequencer in order to enter there. After you enter the museum you have to use the remote controlled Batarang in order to press a button, and then watch as one of the undercover cops gets shot by the Penguin, which leads to a massive brawl where one of the enemies you fight is a Titan, who turned out to be easier to deal with than I thought, because Unlike in the previous game, you don't have to stun them using a Batarang, you can just use your cape, which means that you don't have to use any gadgets in order to defeat it. When you're done brawling, you have to use another remote controlled Batarang in order to press another button. You then are hit with a quick triple combo of gadgets. First is the cryptographic sequencer, which unlocks the door to the elevator, and because the elevator can't be normal, you have to use the electric charge against it, and then use the explosive gel in order to blow up the roof. You are not done with the explosive gel, as afterwards you have to use it again in order to blow up another wall. And we still aren't done blowing things up, because after that you have to blow up a big chunk of ice, because Batman can't break it otherwise. This leads you to the shark tank, where you have to be very careful when moving in order to rescue the policeman. Then Batman uses a grapple inside of a cutscene, so that doesn't count. Then you need to rescue the other policeman, as Bats wouldn't want to leave otherwise, so you have to use a Batarang in order to knock down the raft. After which you have to pull it up using a Batclaw. Then you use another Batclaw shot in order to get to the policeman who's on the edge of the water. And finally use the Batclaw a third time in order to pull yourself and the policeman to a safe place and rescue the last policeman as well. You then need to stay on the same side of the water and go through a predator section in order to save the other policeman. They will tell you that the penguin is in the middle torturing the last two policemen. However, you shouldn't go that way, because if you do, Batman would be unable to defeat the penguin and you would be wasting at least 2 Batclaw shots for no reason. Instead of that, you have to go to the left side, which is where Mr. Freeze is held up, in order to get the information you need from him how to defeat the penguin. And another reason as to why you would want to go to the left side is that you don't even need gadgets in order to get there, because you can just glide to the ice and then walk on it, and only then you need to use a grapple in order to get up to the platform. When you get there, the penguin's boys will be all happy because they would think that they are safe. However, if you use the cryptographic sequencer, you can destroy them very easily. After that, you try to use the explosive gel, however you're interrupted by the second Abramovich twin, and then when you defeat him you have to use the cryptographic sequencer again in order to release Mr. Freeze. Instead of being thankful to you for saving him, Freeze tries to act all high and mighty, so you need to show him who's the boss around these parts, and he quickly tells you how to defeat the penguin. In order to do that, you have to go to the other side again and scan Freeze's suit, because you cannot do it before interacting with Freeze, and you cannot go to Freeze's room before rescuing the cops, so this was the most optimal way of going there. In order to get to that side, you have to use the Batclaw twice, and then Batman scans the Freeze suit during a cutscene, so we're not concerned about that. Now that Batman has acquired the Disruptor, you have to go and fight the penguin, and to do that you have to use the Batclaw in order to reach him. However, you're attacked by the stupid shark, so you have to beat it down and use the Batclaw yet again in order to reach the penguin. After that, you have to grapple up and you can fight with Cobblepot. Not that it's a big fight, all you have to do is walk up to him and use the Disruptor on the ice gun, after which you punch him once and the guy is dead. Speaking of that, you're immediately sent to the Salomon Grundy fight, and in order to defeat him you have to use the explosive gel 9 times in order to blow up the reactors that are charging him. And then you fight Cobblepot again. This time he tanks a few more hits, however the result is the same and he gets beaten up pretty easily. Thankfully, Batman returns to Freeze in a cutscene, so you don't have to worry about using gadgets while Cobblepot is on your back. With the penguin defeated, Batman and Freeze start discussing the cure, and Ra's al Ghul's assassin wakes up and decides that it's a good idea to run away. This is exactly what you wanted, because now you can track her bloodstains and find Ra's al Ghul in order to get his blood. To do that you have to use the forensic scanner. However, the annoying part is that when you get out of the museum, Batman deactivates his detective mode, so in order to move forward you have to also activate the detective mode. While you're tracking the blood you have to grapple up 2 times, the first is in the very beginning and the second is in the very end, just before you find the assassin. You have to use the grapple in this place because otherwise Batman cannot reach the rooftop. After that you finally find the assassin and start chasing her. During the chase you don't have to use any gadgets, you have to just be very careful with your jumping and you will be able to do it without gadgets. When the chase is done, you put a tracker on the assassin and Robin comes to save you and deliver the line launcher to you. After that you follow the tracker and have to find the assassins. In order to do that you have to fall down here, you don't have to use the line launcher. However, after beating up those random thugs you are forced to use the line launcher, and not only that, you have to use it twice in a row because otherwise you won't be able to reach your destination. After that you beat up more random thugs and use the cryptographic sequencer in order to open a giant door, which leads you to having to use the line launcher again in order to get to the other side. And this is, I kid you not, the most infuriating part of the whole game, because all Batman needs to do realistically is stand up and maybe jump a little bit and he'll be able to grab the edge without any issues whatsoever. But no, he doesn't wanna do that because he's an idiot. So unfortunately you have to grapple up, because for some reason Batman doesn't wanna do it otherwise. After this infuriating part, the game does something nice for you and allows you to either pick using the grapple or the line launcher to get to these thugs. Both of them have the exact same result and it doesn't matter which one you pick. After that you go to a Predator encounter and save this doctor. Batman starts to really feel the effects of the Joker's blood. However, he quickly shakes it off and uses the electric charge 3 times in order to open the doors, and for the last one you also have to use an explosive jail shot. You then have to scan 7 mechanical guards in order to learn how to enter Ra's al Ghul's hideout. Having to constantly use so many gadgets drained Batman to the point where he started seeing his dead parents, and then Talia shows up and saves you from her assassins. You then have to go through the trial of the demons, and during that you don't have to use any gadgets, you just have to glide very carefully and you'll be able to reach the checkpoint without any issues. When you successfully complete the trials, you're offered to kill Ra's al Ghul. However, you refuse, so he decides to fight you. And during the Ra's al Ghul boss fight, you have to use the electric charge on him 12 times because you cannot damage him in any other way while he is in his giant form. Other than that, you don't have to use any gadgets. However, honestly, the 12 are more than enough for just one boss fight. And after you defeat Ra's, we see the first of 2 completely brain-dead decisions by Ra's al Ghul. He decides to try to force you to kill him by taking Talia hostage. That's okay, fine. He then clearly watches as Batman sets up his Batarang and points it at him and then throws it at him and does nothing to stop him. He doesn't kill Talia, he does nothing to try and dodge the Batarang. He doesn't even threaten Batman to stop doing what he's doing, so naturally he gets a punch in the face. You then have to leave through the same way you came. You have to grapple up on the gargoyle, after which you have to use the line launcher in order to get to the other side. You then get a message from Strange that Protocol 10 will happen in 2 hours. And you use the line launcher in order to continue your way out of the sewers. Then you have to go through yet another Predator section. When will the Joker learn that these don't work on Batman? Honestly. Like, he does it every time and he always fails. I appreciate the fact that he doesn't give up, but come on now, Joker. Try something else. You then come back to this place, so you have to use the electric charge and then grapple up the train. You then participate in a generational brawl with the Joker thugs and have to use the cryptographic sequencer in order to return to Arkham City. You then want to go back to Freeze, however first you have to save your favorite mayor Quincy Sharp. Like with every other save, Batman does a cutscene grapple and then threatens Quincy Sharp to explain to him what's going on. You can then go back to the GCPD, which is of course surrounded by thugs. However, you can easily defeat them and use the electric charge in order to enter. Then Freeze decides that he has become a bigger man than Batman and challenges him to a fight by destroying one of the cures. Whether or not you have to use gadgets during the Mr. Freeze fight is only dependent on what difficulty you're playing on. Because if you play on easy or normal, you can defeat him without using a single gadget, just doing aerial takedowns. However, if you play on hard mode, you have to use at least 2 gadgets because there are not enough aerial takedowns in order to defeat him. Personally, I played on the normal difficulty for the sake of the video because you can defeat him without using any gadgets. However, if you decide to play on a harder difficulty, you will have to use at least 2 gadgets in order to beat him. After you defeat him, as a sign of respect, Freeze gives you the Freeze Blast, and you have to use it immediately because he has sealed the other exit that you came from and you cannot use it anymore. So in order to get out of the GCPD this time, you have to use the Freeze Blast twice in order to get out of there and go help Vicky Vale. In order to save her, you have to take out all of the snipers, and to do that you have to use one grapple in order to get to the other side where the second pair of snipers is located. You then have to go back to the steel mill, and to do so you have to go through another predator section where you have to take this guy down, so you need to use a grapple because without taking him out you cannot really enter the steel mill. After that the others are pretty easy and you don't have to use any gadgets to deal with them. When you go inside the steel mill you have to use your Freeze Blast as a raft through the hot waters, and while usually you would have to use the Bat Claw in order to reach the next edge, the current will actually drag you there as well, so you don't actually need to use the Bat Claw, you just need to wait for a bit and you will be able to reach your destination without using any other gadgets. You have to do this again, however this time you would get hit at least twice, but other than that you don't have to worry about anything else. You then glide into a room full of Joker's men. When you defeat them you can rescue one of Two-Face's men who repays you by attacking you. After that you have to use the explosive gel on one of the walls in order to blow it up, and you're back to using the Freeze Blast as a raft. This time, however, the current won't lead you in the right direction, and so you would have to use the Bat Claw once in order to reach your destination. After that you have to use the line launcher in order to get to the other side, and then use the Freeze Blast 2 more times in order to move forward. This leads you to this part, which you would think you would have to use the Freeze Blast again. However, you can make the jump on your own, you just have to be lucky, but even if you don't it doesn't matter because Batman just climbs on the platform. After that you have to use the remote controlled Batarang in order to destroy the fuse box, which would open the door for you. Then you would need to use the Freeze Blast again as a raft, and after completing this legendary jump you have to grapple up one time. Next up you're required to use the cryptographic sequencer for the first time in a while, and then you're attacked by the doctor you saved like 10 hours ago and abandoned. After that you have to go through another predator section. This one is pretty easy, you just have to be careful with the mines. And since we were here, you know the drill, you have to use the electric charge 2 times here. Thankfully Batman manages to climb up like he's in Assassin's Creed. Then you have to grapple up the elevator, and you have a mini predator section with this sniper guy and his mines. Now normally this section is very easy because you have the disruptor, you have other gadgets. However in this case, since you have nothing to your name, he did some damage on you. However then you are greeted by the tied up Harley, and so you can make fun of her all you want. You then go back to the Joker's funhouse. In order to do so, you have to grapple up once. And then you have to fight the Joker, all of his gang, a Titan guy, Mr. Hammer. And after you defeat them all, the Joker is like, nah, I'll blow up the ceiling and bury you under it. As the Joker is about to kill you, Talia shows up and offers him the Lazarus pit in exchange for your life. Despite sparing your life, the Joker still punches you in the head so hard that you transfer into Catwoman's body again. Like before, nothing interesting happens during the Catwoman section, and you go to rescue Batman. Protocol 10 has begun, and in order to find Strange, Batman needs to scan one of the Tiger helicopters that has the secret codes. And if you know which one you have to scan, you only have to scan that one. And even better, you don't even need to grapple at any point during finding the chopper, because you can travel around the city without using any grapples. You just have to glide very well and you will be able to reach the chopper without any issues or gadget uses. Then you have to grapple up the chopper and Batman downloads the master controls. In order to enter Wonder City, you have to take down 2 sniper guys and use the cryptographic sequencer with the new master control. Then you have to use the electric charge in order to open one door, then glide down and use another shot of the electric charge in order to open another door. And then you have to go through the biggest challenge of the game, which is listening to strange rambling for about 10 hours. Thankfully he shuts up eventually, so you have to use the manhole cover in order to go back to the sewers. After that you have to use the line launcher twice and then the explosive gel once in order to return to the other doctor you saved like 10 hours ago and then abandoned. You then go to a predator section with the tiger guards. After you defeat them, you have to use the cryptographic sequencer in order to activate the elevator. And just to mess with me, after you go into the elevator, you have to use the sequencer again in order to use it to go upstairs. When the elevator arrives upstairs, you're supposed to use the grapple in order to surprise attack them. However, since we're not using the grapple, you don't surprise them and you just run straight at them. After that you have to use the cryptographic sequencer again in order to open a door. After that you continue your ascension by using the grappling hook and then you jump a bit, showcasing your sick parkour skills before grappling up again. You then grapple one more time. After that Batman showcases some sick rope walking tricks. After that you grapple up one more time and then use the cryptographic sequencer in order to open the most random trapdoor ever, which I don't think anyone would ever use. Anyway, you use the useless trapdoor in order to grapple up and then you're finally able to fight the final battle with Hugo Strange. After you defeat them, you can finally reach Strange by using the cryptographic sequencer. And it's the most hilarious thing ever because he just stands there at the door waiting for you to open it and starts acting like he's a big deal and you're not about to just beat the crap out of him. Before you can do some real damage to him, Ra's al Ghul shows up and stabs Strange in the back quite literally. Then Strange activates Protocol 11 and destroys Wonder City, and Ra's al Ghul shows that he's an idiot once more by stabbing himself in the heart. I get that Batman was literally on your back, but stabbing yourself in the heart is not a good strategy, even if you can be revived. With Strange defeated, Protocol 10 is over. However, now you have to deal with the Joker, who has Talia captured. The movie theater where you're going to confront the Joker is surrounded by multiple snipers, and surprisingly enough, you can defeat them without using any gadgets. You have to just be very careful how you move around in order to not get their attention. However, aside from that, you can reach every single sniper without using any gadgets. And when you're done fighting the snipers, you have to go inside the movie theater where you finally confront the Joker. You know what happens there. It's revealed that Batman has been falling for the old fake Joker gag all this time and Talia gets shot because of that. You now have to fight with Clayface, who is the final boss of the game, and in order to defeat him you have to dodge his attacks until he turns into a ball and then trick him into hitting the corner, which will deal massive damage to him. After you do that for a second time, you then have to use your freeze grenades in order to finish the rest of his health bar, and to do so you have to use 10 freeze grenades. After that, the boss fight basically restarts and you have to do the exact same thing again. Bait him into the corners that are left twice. After that, finish him off with 10 freeze grenades. For the third part of this battle, all you have to do is fight the mini Clayfaces and wait for the big one to open his mouth in order to throw a freeze grenade into it. And after you hit him 4 times that way, Clayface is finally defeated. Batman finally acquires the cure and cures himself from the Titan poisoning, and like the idiot he is, the Joker decides that it's a good idea to stab Batman in the shoulder of the arm that's literally holding the cure. So naturally, he drops the damn cure and breaks it. What the hell was this dude expecting to achieve by stabbing the guy in the arm that holds the cure he needs? The Joker dies and we're finally done with the challenge, because after that all you have to do is a Catwoman section, which is pretty much just a Predator encounter anyway, so you don't have to worry about any gadget uses. With that, it means that it took us a total of 167 gadgets in order to beat Batman Arkham City. 32 of them were the freeze blast and another 32 for the grappling hook. Those two were the most used gadgets. After them it was the electric charge with 31, and then a big fall off for the explosive chair with 16. On 15 was the cryptographic sequencer, and the forensic scan finished with 11. Then it's the Batclaw with 9 shots and the line launcher with 8. The regular Batarang had 5 uses and the remote Batarang had 4. The regular detective mode had 2 uses and the disruptor only had 1. Just like the smoke pellet which you used in the start of the game. That's the end of the video. You can check out the first video in the series where I covered Arkham Asylum. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!